it's not about how much knowledge you retain. It's about how much knowledge you use. And I think that that's a part of the conversation that we don't talk about. I've met a lot of people that, gosh, they got a lot of head knowledge, but they're not doing anything with it. And they're not using that wisdom. Well, number one, it's knowledge, it's not wisdom, but then they're not using that knowledge so that it becomes wisdom, and so that their life or their ministry or their family or their walk is different. It's just they know a whole bunch of stuff, but you don't see the material change in their life.
Welcome to the Age of Lions podcast, a platform and community dedicated to bringing purpose, strategy, and calling to kingdom-minded people who are 50 plus and excited about their next chapter. Here's your host, Mark Clement.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 43 of the Age of Lions podcast. As you heard from that opening segment, we have an incredible guest for you today. Dr. Van Moody, a good friend, a guy I've known a long time, an incredible pastor, leader, author, speaker. This guy's done TED Talks. This guy has an amazing church where he preaches. He has traveled the world preaching the gospel. He's an amazing teacher. He's authored many best-selling books. This guy's a rock star, and it's getting a rock star interview because he says some stuff on here today that just made my mind go just blown. Just unbelievable. And I cannot wait for you to get the benefit of that. So make sure you listen to every last second of that. Before we get into that today, just want to encourage you to like, subscribe, follow, comment, share these podcasts, whatever platform you're listening or watching on. We hope that you're getting a lot out of it, and we hope that you are passing it along. And then another way you kind of connect with us is go to ageoflions.com, which is our website. You can see all about those shows, all about the most recent episodes. And there you can also sign up to be part of our community. And I would highly encourage you to do that so that you get notifications about things that are going on, opportunities to connect, early information, and all those kind of things. And we would love to have you be a part of that conversation. As I've said many, many times, this is not about me in any way, shape, form, or fashion, but it's 100% about this community and about us learning together and from each other about how to age with purpose, how to age with intentionality, make a difference for the kingdom as we go through life over the next several decades. And we've finished incredibly strong in our walk with God and the calling and the purpose that He's put us here on earth to do and to accomplish. And so we'd love to hear from you, what you like, what you don't like, recommend guests, recommend topics, anything you've got to say. We'd love to hear it. And we hope that you'll get involved in the community and be part of that with us. So without further ado, I cannot wait for you to hear this episode. This is my good friend, Dr. Van Moody. Hey, Van Moody, how are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing great, Mark. How are you, Brenny?
Man, I'm so good. It's so good to see you. We were kind of chatting offline before we get started. It's been a minute since we have been face to face. I think somewhere around the neighborhood of 14, 15 years, which seems crazy.
Yeah, it has been a minute. You didn't have any gray hair the last time I saw you.
Yeah, that is, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. That is absolutely true. You look exactly the same, by the way.
I got a little extra gray here too, but yeah, definitely.
Well, you hide it well, but yeah, I think we were talking about, I think it was on, we both had the privilege of kind of being associated with a music video my company did for Hezekiah Walker, Every Praise video that, it's got like 160 million views or some crazy.
It's crazy, man. Crazy.
And that's a whole story of just how God kind of made that all happen. But your church was super helpful, man. Most of those dancers, I think, came from your church, or at least.
Yeah, they sure did.
And you were out there supporting, and that was a crazy day. They were running late, and it was hot.
Yeah.
It was a whole thing, but that was a fun little season. I think about it every time I go over there to eat at a restaurant or come over in 5 Points. And my wife loves to tell people that story. She'll say that he did this thing right here. This everybody in the world has seen it. But that was fun. Well, tell us, I'm going to tell everybody a little bit about you before you come on. I'll do a little intro, but I'd love for you just to kind of tell people who you are, a little bit about your family, your church, and what all you're involved in.
Yeah, well, I'm Dr. Van Moody, honored to for the last 21 years, be married to an incredible partner, Dr. Ty Moody. We have been blessed to be parents of two kids, rather. We've got a daughter who, Eden Sydney, is finishing high school and headed to Spelman College in the fall. And then we have a son, Ethan Isaiah, who is a junior, and he'll be finishing high school and pursuing his dreams to play D1 college basketball. And then we founded 20 years ago the Worship Center Christian Church, which is a multi-site church in Birmingham and around the state of Alabama. We have 5 physical campuses and an online campus. And so, I mean, that's in a nutshell who I am. I've written several books, created over 80 different leadership and discipleship studies. And in my spare time, I'm a high rocks athlete, did CrossFit for about 10 years and then moved over into high rocks. And so I'm a competitive high rocks athlete. That's a little bit of how I try to stay in shape.
What does that mean, high rocks? What does that mean?
So high rocks is a fast growing multidisciplinary sport. It's they call it the World Series of Fitness Racing. But they are, you compete all over the world, and it's a combination of running and several, like 8 different disciplines of fitness exercises. And it's all into kind of one big race. And so a lot of people in the fitness community know it. It's actually kind of become the next big thing since CrossFit. If you remember how popular CrossFit used to be, sure. High Rocks has kind of taken that place now. And I think it's growing the way that it is because it is less taxing on your joints. CrossFit is great when you're younger, but the older you get, your joints just take a beating. So High Rocks is a little bit less taxing, but it is a fast growing fitness sport.
Okay. Yeah, I've never even heard of that. That's fascinating. I knew you were in great shape. When I watch your videos and your sermons, and I can see the guns under the robe sometimes. And you've always been an athlete, and always, I know you're running. And in fact, I was thinking the other day, we also did that movie together. Back in the day. Yeah. Went to Jamaica and you ran a marathon. Yeah. And we did kind of a custom movie for Pastor Van and his church, and that was a fun project. But you've always kind of been in that world, and you're right. So I'm part of a thing called F3. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
I know F3. So
love F3, and it's been part of my journey this last year. I've lost a ton of weight and gotten healthy again. But it's a challenge too. Even though it's a lot lower impact than CrossFit, it's not kind of as crazy as some of the CrossFit gyms can be. I literally had knee surgery 10 days ago. So, oh, wow. Yeah. And I think it was an old injury that just kind of got flared up through the activity. Mm-hmm. I don't think my exercise actually caused it, but it's just part of that aging journey. Like you said, the joints to take care of yourself and mobility and stretching and all the stuff that goes with it. But I can say for me, the stuff I'm part of has gone such a long way in just helping me feel better, be more flexible.
Absolutely.
Strength. I was at physical therapy today, and just kind of getting the knee strong again and all the stuff. And he had me do some exercises that a year ago I would have really struggled to do, like balancing on a ball, like in a plank position, and doing stuff with your legs. And I was just able to do it. But I had been kind of stagnant for several years and really let myself go. And I couldn't, when I started exercising, it was brutally hard to try to get back into it. So kudos to you for really staying on top of that. And so on that note, let's kind of use that as a segue into this opening thing. We always kind of ask people, just to kick it off before we get into stuff that's specific to you. We ask people, at what point in your journey did you sort of have that aha moment of, hey, I'm in shape. I'm doing great. I'm really trying to stay active and all this stuff, but I'm getting older. I feel it. I see it. What was that moment for you when you kind of had that aha thing of, I'm kind of entering a different stage?
Yeah, I think it was on the backside of 45 for me. Yeah. Like I said, I've always been active, but I would, travel or maybe take some time off from the gym. And then when I would try to get back to that routine, it just was so much harder than I recall it ever being in my life. Yeah. And that's when it really hit me like, okay, I'm really getting older and my body's feeling different. It takes me longer to get certain things done. That is when the realization really hit me. I think in my early 40s, I felt like, hey, I'm in my 40s, but there's no big deal. But on the backside of 45, you just really start noticing things. And I also had some tragedy in my life. My mom passed of stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and then my sister passed a few years after that. And all of that happened on the backside of 40 for me. And there's something about losing loved ones that begins to put life in perspective, particularly when you start losing your parents. My sister was 8 years older than me. And so in many ways, she's like a big sister and, another mother for me. And so to lose her and my mom really began to put a lot of things in perspective. And then when you have issues in your family like cancer, or, like other kind of ailments, diabetes, or, other kind of issues, I think it should make you hyper vigilant about what do I need to do and how do I need to really begin to think about setting my life up so that I can try to not go down that same path. So I think all of those things kind of together really brought things into focus for me.
Yeah, there's so much truth in that, man. I've had a similar experience. My parents have both died in the last 12 years. And they were both 69 when they died, even though different years because they weren't the same age, but too young, and they didn't take care of themselves. And as wonderful as they were in so many areas and great parents to me and my brothers, they didn't take care of themselves. And so that definitely has inspired me. Did the same thing. It kind of made that wake up call of like, man, I want to be like my dad in every way, but that way. And even now I want to honor him because he was wonderful. But I don't want to, he had a hard time getting around. He got slow in his physicality. He couldn't walk. He does all the things. And it really makes you start to see that in yourself. Sometimes you go, I got to change direction for sure.
Absolutely.
And that was kind of the impetus really for all this conversation that we've been having ongoing now for about a year is, hey, this is a real thing. It's made to look a certain way on TV or in movies or whatever. We joke about it. I think there's a lot of denial, around people who are, I'm a little older than you. I'm 57, almost 58, but as we get in our 50s, and we do have more healthcare and we've got more options and we're younger than we used to be, at this age and all the stuff. And that's all good. But there are decisions that have to be made, no question. So speaking of that, what are some things you do besides the fitness side, the working out? What do you do just to stay on top of that with your eating mentally, physically, spiritually? Like, what are some things you're doing to be strategic in how you're kind of investing in yourself for the future?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that I've done is I became vegan. And so, when you and I met each other, that was not the case. And for much of my, early life, I just ate whatever. But I really began to study about, how men age, what happens to us when we age, why there are, certain issues that a lot of men struggle with, and what was the best course of action for me to try to go in a different direction. And it was interesting because I was never really a student of nutrition. I never really was a student of what kind of practices, can one engage in for health. But as I began to age, I really became a student at that. I just began to voraciously read anything that I could. And there were several things that I read that really opened my eyes. So for an example, in my younger days, I used to almost every year get a sinus infection. It was like clockwork, it never fails. At least once a year, I would get a sinus infection. And the more I began to read about, how certain foods impact your body, I learned why this was happening to me. And, when I took things out of my diet, and really committed to the vegan lifestyle. And I'll tell you, Mark, it kind of dovetails back. It's an interesting story. It dovetails back to prior to my mom's passing, my wife and I were providing care for her. So, we were driving back and forth to Atlanta. My mom was in Atlanta and she went through 2 bouts of breast cancer. We thought that she had beat the cancer. And then later on is when we find out that she's got stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And so my wife and I are driving every week to Atlanta and sitting with her and caring for her all week. And then I would drive back to Birmingham on the weekends for church. And I'll never forget one, time driving back. It was just this interesting thing. I felt the Holy Spirit say to me, you need to change the way you eat. And it was the culmination of, I think, seeing what was happening to my mother. And that was a conversation that I was having with my mom early on when she was in her cancer journey. Because a part of my reading was to also read for her. What are things that she can do to extend her life? What are things that she can do to help battle the cancer? And I kept making a lot of the suggestions, but she just wouldn't do it. My mother loved food. Food was a love language for her. She loved cooking for people. That was just one of her stress relievers. And she was such an old school person as it relates to food that she just believed I'm going to always eat this. I've always eaten this way. I'm going to always eat this way. And seeing kind of her waste away, in addition to all of the things that I had been reading for her and for me, it just clicked. And I'm driving back. We're literally on 20, heading from Atlanta back to Birmingham. And I looked over and I told my wife, I'm going to become vegan. And she was like, what? And then her next response was, well, I hope you don't expect me to do it as well. I said, no, right. I'm not asking you to do it. I'm just telling you, I feel like I have to do this. And when I did, Mark, it was remarkable.
Wow.
I felt better. My energy levels went through the roof. I really felt like, I started kind of doing the Benjamin Button thing. I felt like I was aging backwards because, I was sluggish. I didn't have the kind of energy that I used to have. All of those things that you feel like, man, I'm getting older. Like that was happening to me. But the moment that I committed to just changing the way that I ate, a lot of that stuff went away. I actually slept better, didn't get nearly as sick like I used to, stopped getting the sinus infections, was able to train at a different level, so just everything got better. And I don't know if this is too risque for the podcast, but even my sexual health got better.
Sure.
My wife came to me, maybe about 3 or 4 months in to me eating differently. And she just said, hey, are you taking the blue pill? And I said, no, I'm not. She was like, because things are really different. I mean, like they've gotten like much better. And she said, well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And I said, well, it's just the way that I'm eating. And right. So that's been a big piece from a physical standpoint. I think spiritually, I am a huge proponent of daily time with the Lord. And so I just believe that we ought to live life in the rhythm of our daily encounters with God. And so I'm very regimented in, how I start my day. I get up at the same time every day and I start my time with the Lord. And then after my devotion time, I'm going to the gym. And then, after my gym time, I come back, I have a cup of coffee and start going through emails and really start my day. And my days are regimented like that. That's the way that I do life, like 6 days out of the week, the 7th day Sunday. And so there's a different rhythm because I'm preparing for church and that kind of thing. But Monday through Saturday, that rhythm really defines my life, and everything in my life revolves around that rhythm. And so I feel like that not only helps me physically, it helps me mentally, it helps me emotionally. My ability to take everything to the Lord and share it with him, but then also to be built up by him through the scriptures and through prayer time is absolutely indispensable. So I feel like, the nutrition and the physical fitness helps, the physical part of me. And then my walk with the Lord helps the spiritual and emotional part of me. And then you put those two together, and it really creates what I think is a complete life, a healthy life. And then you layer on top of that family time and, having a great spouse and being present for your kids. And those have been the things that have really blessed me in this journey.
Wow. That's amazing. We've had another guest on here. Do you know Sean Lovejoy by any chance?
Yeah, I do. I do know Sean. Yeah.
So, Sean is a vegan and has been doing that for, I don't know, I'll say a decade or so. I don't remember when he started exactly, but he was one of our early guests and he talked about that as well. And so let me play devil's advocate to that, because I'm sure you hear this all the time. And this is just a question that I have. So when I think about vegan, And by the way, will you explain the difference between vegan and vegetarian? Because there is a difference, right?
Yeah, there is. So pretty much a vegetarian eats, no animal products, but they still do dairy.
Okay.
A vegan doesn't do any dairy and no animal products at all.
Okay.
So that's the easiest way for me to explain the difference between being vegan and vegetarian.
Okay. So that being said, and I don't want to speak for Sean. I can't remember which one he is, but I think he does the vegan as well. But nonetheless, So when you talk about this with people, I would imagine, and this is just a question I would have. So I can understand benefits immediately. Okay, no processed food, sugar, the dairy stuff. That's not hard. You can do the math and go, okay, I get that. What is the impact of the meat part? Even if it's good, clean, grass fed or whatever, beef, chicken, pork, fish. Sometimes the things that nutritionists say these are actually good for you. So I'd love to get your take on that. I know you're not a doctor or whatever, but just in your personal experience and what you've learned, what would you say about that? What's the thought process around that?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm not the kind of vegan that believes that everybody ought to be vegan, but I do believe that you need to learn.
And the rest of us appreciate that, by the way.
Right. Yeah. I think the most important thing, right. Yeah, we're not trying to shame people into anything, but I do believe that the most important thing that I've learned on this journey is you need to learn how certain foods impact your body. Okay. And for me, for an example, just hereditary wise, things like, high cholesterol and diabetes, those are things that are in my family lineage. And so part of my journey to becoming vegan was because I had an awareness of how certain foods may not do anything for you, but then they adversely affect me. And I had to learn that because early on, I was healthy, but I had high cholesterol. And, I remember my doctor trying to put me on statins in my 30s. And I was like, whoa, like, what is this all about? Like, I'm going to the gym, I'm working out. He was like, it's not your lifestyle. He said, it's just, you got some hereditary kind of things and certain foods will trick your body into, creating more cholesterol or affecting you a certain way. And so for me, the vegan lifestyle was driven by that awareness and driven by a deep study of based on my life and my health factors and family history, what is the best way for me to eat? I read a book when I turned 40 called The Life Plan, and it was written by a medical doctor. His name is Jeffrey Life. Who's got a very fascinating story. He is medically trained as a cardiologist. And then in this, journey, he talks about the challenge that he had as a medical doctor and even in his own life. And he ended up going back to school and getting a PhD in nutrition. And at the end of his book, he actually lays the same thing out. He says, based on your family history, these are the things that you need to consider. So he's not an advocate for everybody's got to be a vegan. What he says is you need to know your body. You need to understand how certain foods affect you. And then you need to look at, based on that information, here are some things. So for an example, a lot of people are advocates for the Mediterranean diet, which is also very health forward, but it doesn't remove, all animal products out of your diet. And, that works for certain people. So I think, you got to know, because there are some really good benefits to clean animal products. One of the challenges that vegans like myself have to account for is, are you going to get enough protein? Yeah. And so, I've had to supplement protein in a variety of other ways because taking those animal products out of your diet, that's our main source of protein. But I made the choice because that was best for me. And my doctors have signed off on it. All of my health markers got better. Now my doctor says, dude, you are the healthiest patient that I have. And it's because, I was really intentional about learning and then making the decision in light of that information.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, man, I appreciate you framing it that way. I think that's super helpful for people to go, okay, it's not a one size fits all. It's not all or nothing, right? But it is worth considering. I mean, just for me, I was thinking, okay, one thing I love about what you said was just for myself, and I can't think of any like specific issue that I'm having per se, but I wonder what it would be like if I went a few weeks and just didn't have milk. Dairy, what if I didn't, and just see how I feel different, and then try the same thing with maybe, beef or, you pick. But it does make you wonder And honestly, probably fair to say for a lot of us, people just don't have enough discipline to just even experiment with it, let alone do it. You know, we're so set in our ways, and so
or we don't know what we don't know, and we're just so used to doing certain things. Like one of the things that I learned on this journey is everybody's body doesn't process dairy the same way, and so there's a higher percentage of African Americans who struggle in processing dairy, you know, and so it comes across as either being lactose intolerant or your body just not being able to process dairy. And, you know, there's a lot of history and stuff behind that, but I didn't know that. But it made a lot of sense because a lot of people in my family either can't do milk or they're lactose intolerant. So all of those are things that I just didn't know.
Sure.
And to your point, I think sometimes we're so set in our ways or we've just done things a certain way for so long and we don't know what we don't know. And that was the definite case for me until I started reading and exploring to get to where I am today.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people too don't really know their family history that well. I mean, you've had a unique opportunity with your mom and your sister of kind of walking through a journey where you were kind of forced to realize what all their things were. And I know a good bit about my parents' medical stuff, but I probably don't know everything. And they're now they're gone, so I'm never going to really know that. But so again, it probably speaks to the fact that it's worth, if you can't find that information out in the traditional way, the experimenting of trying stuff in and out. Let's switch it up. Let's move some stuff around. Let's see what works or doesn't work. Is worth it just to see if it might have an adverse or positive effect.
No doubt.
I think most people just aren't that thoughtful about it, to be honest. And I'll put myself in that camp. Like, I feel fine. I don't have any big health issues, blah, blah, blah. It's easy just to go, it's fine. But I can honestly say, in light of this conversation, I don't know if it's great. It seems okay, but is that the best it can be? Maybe not. So might be worth looking into. You talked earlier about your kids, and so kind of in a unique situation because even though your son's younger, he's been gone for a little bit with his special training he's doing. And now your daughter, and by the way, so fun to watch on social media, just the process of you announcing the college she's going to, and you guys did that big spread on her bed and all the colors.
Yeah.
And, it's like, wow. And she's just beautiful, by the way. And of course I don't know her. I haven't seen her since she was a little girl, but just beautiful, looks just like her mom, and just seems like she's got a great personality. And I know you're super proud of her.
I am.
But so you guys are right on the cusp. I guess at the end of the summer, you'll kind of enter that, what we typically call the empty nest season, with one out in Nevada, and then one, I guess Spelman's in Georgia, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how has that moment been something you've prepared for, worked on, talked to people about? Hey, how's this going to be? Or has it caught you by surprise? What's that been like for you and your wife?
I think a little bit of both. I think the surprise is the time flies by so quickly. Yeah. I remember when our children were born and everybody kept telling us, enjoy it. It goes by in a blink of an eye. And I'm thinking, I got 18 years, but then you get on the other side and you understand and appreciate that statement, because it does. It feels like just yesterday, they were infants crawling around the house. But at the same time, I think that there has been a preparation in my heart because I'm really excited, about them entering this new phase of life. And I'll tell you, as you get older, particularly as God begins to help you put age in perspective, your priorities begin to shift. And so for me, some years ago, I think a part of this entrance into kind of, different season of my life, my priorities shifted from thinking solely about me to really thinking more about legacy and them. And so much of what I do now is about them and really positioning them to live their best life as they move into adulthood, and also preparing for a day that I'm not going to be here. That is something that is really intentional for me. And I think that thought process, that intentionality, and that preparation has helped me to wrap my mind around this whole empty nest season. So it hasn't really caught us off guard. I mean, there's the nostalgia of, oh my goodness, like we got like grown people now almost, but at the same time, we're not just totally taken off guard because we've been preparing for this. I think a part of my responsibility is to leave them the ability to stand on our shoulders and to have the kind of head start that I never had. And so that's really, really important for us. A lot of how we orient our life and our finances is around thinking about the day after tomorrow and what kind of legacy we're going to leave to them. And I think that perspective by itself prepares you for this whole empty nest season.
Yeah, for sure. You said something there that was interesting. You were talking about preparing for their life and investing in them. This is not what you meant, but I want to ask you to unpack something. I think sometimes, while that is super important and 100% agree with everything you said, I do think sometimes we see people kind of in our age bracket who probably take that to an extreme to the point that their life starts to become less. They start living vicariously through the kids. It's all about the kids and the grandkids and that. And while I love anybody who loves their family, cares about them, spends time with their family, like we said earlier, like we're traveling all the time to try to see all of our kids around the country and now around the world and stay with them and not let the distance, get in the way. But there's a balance there between investing and spending time in your family, but also making sure our lives, because the whole theme of this podcast is our viewers know is like, we're not done. In some ways, we're just getting started. We have incredible opportunity in this season of life because of wisdom, experience, more free time, hopefully more money in the bank, more resources generally at our disposal. So it's an opportunity to really start to make a significant impact, not only in our family, but in other things that God's calling us to do. So how would you encourage somebody in that balance of how you kind of do both?
Well, I think the easiest way, and not to oversimplify it, is I think you need to know that you're called to do both. You are not called to lose your life, in your kids. You are called to, think about them, prepare for them. I think legacy should be a part of every decision that we make in the season of our lives. But legacy doesn't mean that you don't live your best life now. Interestingly enough, this is probably one of the most effective and exciting seasons of ministry for me. And I think because of the combination that you just laid out, there's so much wisdom that I have now that I didn't have in the early years of life. There's, I look at life differently. It's just such an exciting time when I think about the things that I am personally called to do for the kingdom and, all of the ways that I can make a difference. This is the most exciting time. And so it doesn't mean that my focus on, leaving my kids a legacy or pouring into them, that it eclipses that in any way. It means that I'm called to do both. And this is the season where I can do both well. I'm the cool dad now because my kids really appreciate my wisdom. Early on, it was so much about their mom. And I think that there were a lot of things they didn't quite understand about me. But now, they want to have every conversation and, I need dad's wisdom. I need dad's wisdom. And I think that that's the joy of this season. And so I would say to anybody entering into this season or who's already in it, live it up. And I also think if you are blessed to have a great spouse, there's a season of joy in this season when your kids are getting older and they leave the house. Man, it is just, I wouldn't trade it for the world. The ability for us to do things that we couldn't do because our whole life revolved around getting them to basketball practice and soccer games and violin practice. Now that freedom is just absolutely incredible. I mean, as soon as our daughter goes to Spelman, we've got a laundry list. My wife and I are going to Ghana this summer, and then we're going out to Napa Valley in the fall. And then we're both competing in a high rocks competition in Salt Lake City. And we're going to be burning up some sky miles, but we couldn't do that before because,
that's right.
We were so limited. And so that's what makes this season really fun. And you couple that with the wisdom and the understanding and good stewardship that does create more money and resources in the bank. It just allows you to do more. So this is a great season.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. We talk about that all the time. Just, we have one more at home who's got three years of high school left and we're loving that. And he gets more attention than he probably wants, being the only one at home. But, even last night, we kind of had to divide and conquer. She took him to a thing at school, and I had something else to do with work, and that's just normal life. And we all, I think, have those seasons. But in the same way, we talk a lot about, okay, we're not rushing this, and we want to enjoy every moment that we have with him home. But when that time does come, what are we excited about? And I believe personally, one of the best things in life that keeps you moving forward is always having something to look forward to. Like what are you dreaming
Absolutely.
about? What plans do you have? Trips you want to take? Ministries you want to get involved with? Things you want to serve at church? It could be anything. But excuse me. I was fighting that. I couldn't get past.
It's all good. I understand, brother.
But having something to look forward to is such a key, I think, to the youthfulness, that mindset, kind of staying moving, and all of that. So it's really encouraging for me to hear you say the same exact thing, about you and Ty, because that's what I get fired up seeing other couples who are living. I was like, I want to live that same life. I want to have that. So that being said, let me ask you this: what do you say to people who, and I'm sure as a pastor, this has come across your desk many times, or your office. They might get to this stage, and maybe they haven't prepared well. Maybe they haven't been a believer very long, and they're just kind of coming into all these realizations and this perspective and this kingdom mindset and all the things. And now they're like, gosh, I want to do that too, but I haven't laid the groundwork. And I like to tell people it's never too late. But from a practical sense, how would you coach them to work toward that, make that pivot, et cetera?
Yeah, I think number one, you're spot on. It's never too late, but I think you have to have some intentionality around it. There's that old adage that the best time to plant a tree is 30 years ago, and the second best time is today. Right. I think they have to have that understanding, and I think people have to prioritize their decisions around the things that are really important to them. What I've seen a lot is, people have that realization, oh my goodness, maybe I did plan, or, I squandered some years. And they say that this is what I want, but then their decisions don't line up with that. And so one of the things that I encourage people to do is, if this is what you really want, you can't lament about the years wasted or the money wasted. But what you can do is you can shift things for today. And today starts building momentum towards that life that you want, if your decisions are in line with that. So it can easily happen. And the cool thing about, if you're married and got a great spouse and you guys work together as a team, as you should, you begin to tap into the exponential power of partnership, and you can get there super fast. But oftentimes, couples don't, because they either, don't have the decisions that are in line with what they want, or they don't work together. So those are the things that I, really, really stress when I'm talking to couples that are coming into this season, and, continue to stress to them that this is a great season. That there's so many things that can happen in the season, and they may need to even think about what do they want to accomplish now that maybe they couldn't accomplish in other years, or what are some of the things that they were never able to do now, never able to do in the previous season of their life that they're able to do now, and to really dream again, because man goodness, it's an exciting time if people really lean into it. So that's what I really say to people. Because I've seen it. You're right. I've seen a cross section of people entering into the season with different perspectives, regrets, apprehension, fear, all of it. And I really try to help people to see beyond that, to see what the possibilities could be. Yeah,
that's so good. And the other thing too is, God doesn't work on the same timeline that we do. He's not limited. Time is not. Right. He's not caged in by time the way we mere mortals are. And so what he can do in a short amount of time, in a day, in an instant, anything is possible. And I think we really need to be reminded of that too, that, hey, just because we messed up in the past, just because we made some mistakes, just because we didn't lay the groundwork or invest, whatever the stuff is, whatever area of life we're talking about here, that he can put his hand on something and make it happen in a supernatural way that is beyond, what the normal math doesn't math in that way, but the spiritual kingdom math works, and he has a way of taking a little and making a lot of it, regardless of time.
Absolutely.
And whenever you hear those stories, it's so cool. I saw a lady online the other day who's an acquaintance of ours, my wife and I, and we got to kind of be part of her journey as she came into Highlands College where I was working. She was she had some addiction issues in her life, and her personal life was kind of a wreck and just a trail of disaster. And she would say this, and of course I'm not going to say her name, but God got a hold of her. She turned it around. She got healthy. She got free of addiction. It's all those basic things. Started going to Highlands College, the adult program, got a certificate. Now she's in the mission field. She's overseas all the time, posting, ministering to people, spreading the gospel, seeing people get saved. Like this incredible thing. That was just 5 years ago. Just 5 years ago. And she's probably a little older than we are even. And yet she was able to do that and turn around because it wasn't about her. She did the things she was called to do. She was faithful, obedient, made the hard decisions, invested herself, did the work, but God put his hand on it. And she's doing stuff that 5 years ago, most people would have said, there's no way in 5 years you're going to be leading teams overseas, ministering to people, And so it's always fun to see that because that's and I'm sure you have a million examples too. Like you've seen God do that. And so I just want to emphasize that to people like, hey, we're not just talking here. This is real. And God can do miracles in your life for sure.
Yeah, he can redeem time like nobody else, so that's the exciting thing, man.
1,000%. Yeah. So how would you say you've, like you said earlier, you've got a long tenure in your position. You've been leading this church for a long time. I remember when you started that church, that's how we met. We came on and did a lot of work for you, and you wanted to do things in a different way. And it was really fun to watch that journey and be part of it for the first 8 or 10 years or whatever it was. Yeah. But a lot of pastors would have moved on or started something new or left and gone to a bigger church, whatever. But you've stayed the course. You've been faithful to that calling. God has kept you in that role. And what I like about you and admire about you is that you haven't gone into coasting mode. You're not just, you've got 5 campuses, you got all these people, maybe thousands of people, whatever. And you can go, hey, I'm successful. I've made it. I'm good. But you don't do that. Maybe you've had seasons of that or temptation to do that. I don't know. But on the whole, I think it's fair to say just by knowing and watching you, that hasn't happened. So how have you fought through that and stayed fresh in the sense of vision and what's next and dreaming and God's calling and, you're not kind of resting on your laurels. How have you been able to do that when it would be tempting or easy to just stop?
I think the biggest thing is it all that energy and that vision flows out of my daily walk with the Lord. It is really hard to read scripture and not be infused with hope and possibility of what God can do. And so for me, just because of that rhythm of my life that I talked about earlier in the pod and just spending that daily time with the Lord, he always speaks and always gives me fresh vision, fresh revelation, fresh hope. It's amazing the way that God just opens up doors of possibilities, and those possibilities infuse me with energy because it's just that, man, what if God does this? Or, just the excitement to see what he does with this new concept, a new idea that he's given us. Like that's fueled me. I haven't had to go searching for inspiration. It's come organically out of my time with the Lord. And I would say for me, that's got to be the key. I definitely think iron sharpens iron. I definitely think you are encouraged on some level when you're around like-minded individuals. It's always encouraging to hear what God has done in the life of other people. But I don't think that that's been my main source of, vision and inspiration. It has absolutely come from God himself. There are a lot of things that we're doing now that God kind of began to unveil in part some years ago. And I think the fact that I stayed with it, even when some of this, most recent vision didn't make sense. But now, because I just wanted to stay faithful, and that's a big part of my life. I've learned kind of the hard way of, trying to do it my way. And so after God delivered me from that, and I learned some really significant lessons about what real surrender and trust looks like, I'm just the kind of guy that if God says do something, I am going to do it. And I'm just going to stick in there, even when it doesn't make sense, even in its early days, and you may not see the kind of fruition that you want. I've just learned that if you can be faithful to what God has called you to do, it'll pay off in whatever way the Lord wants it to pay off. And what I've also seen recently is there are things that the Lord showed us several years ago that didn't make sense. That I was kind of like, huh, what? Are you serious? But now those are some of the main sources of vision and excitement and hope, because I stayed with it. And now I'm like, oh, now I see why this is such a big deal. And the beauty of God's timing is years ago, some of the things he told us to do that were early days and didn't make much sense. His timing is so perfect because now, gosh, so much has changed, and the technology and it's everything now that we have at our fingertips allows us to do what he called us to do, for the kingdom, like nobody's business. So it's really exciting, but it comes from him. It comes from staying with him, keeping my ears and my heart open to him. Those are the things that really, I think, have been really great for me over the years.
Yeah. Speaking of technology and the things that are happening right now that we're kind of, we got a front row seat to some incredible changes in that world. How do you guard against becoming irrelevant when it comes to culture, technology, the world in general? I know, we're in the world, not of the world. Yes, but we still operate in the world. We have to minister to the world. We got to be able to speak some kind of language to them that they understand. So how do you keep from becoming irrelevant as you get older? Because I know, it does get a little harder sometimes.
Yeah, I think there are two fundamental ways that have been hallmarks of my life, and I learned these from Jesus, right? I think Jesus was always relevant because he did two things, and it doesn't matter the order. He met the needs of people, and he helped people to find answers to the hard questions of life. So, a lot of people think, man, technology, and there's so many things that are changing, but when you strip away all of those things, people are still fundamentally asking the same questions. No matter how technologically advanced we get, no matter how, culturally diverse the world becomes, at the end of the day, there are some fundamental questions about life that everybody still wrestles with. And we understand, even more pragmatically, I think so now than ever before, at least if your eyes are open, that a lot of the things that we grasp for in the world, thinking that those are the things that are going to answer those hard questions, they disappoint every single time. And that's the beauty and the brilliance of Jesus and the Word of God. We know that, the Word is truth. And we know that truth is a person. Truth is Jesus Christ. And so, I want my life to be built on something that's substantive. And I want other people to have an encounter with that which is substantive. And the only answer for that is Jesus and the Word. And so those are really the two kind of axes that we exist on. We want to help people find answers to the hard questions of life, the hard issues, addiction, how do I parent? How do I navigate the craziness of life? Or, I'm struggling with this. I mean, those are all hard questions. But then people also still have fundamental needs. And no matter what happens in the world, those needs are constant. And so for us, those are the two things that we stick to. Those are the two things we focus on. And those are the two things that help us to stay relevant.
Man, what an incredible answer, Van. That is so, I'm so glad you didn't say something about, well, I read this magazine and I follow this stuff. And there's a place for that. There's a place to stay aware of what's going on. But I'm so glad that answer, man, that just rocked me to my core. That's powerful because you are 100% right. Those things don't change. People are people. It doesn't matter. They were that way thousands of years ago. They're going to be that way until Jesus comes back. And that's such a good clarifying way to think about how we move and operate in the world, because those things don't go away. And, we've had some other people mention some things like this. William Vanderbloemen was one of our early guests. I know you know William or who he is. And he was talking about the human resource. That's still going to be the main thing. Like you can't, none of this happens without people. And if you can't speak to people, talk to people, work with people, help people, what is the point? And there's so much in that. And I've noticed even now, like I'll hear on the radio or different things I listen to or watch. There's a radio station in town right now that they have a little saying that says 100% human. I guess meaning that it's not pre-programmed,
AI
not AI,
yeah.
whatever. And I thought,
Yeah.
wow, that's really interesting that they feel like that's a selling point, because
Right.
it is. Because I know it makes me care a little bit more about it. Because like, oh, these are real people trying to have a connection to me through this medium, And so it's definitely a thing for sure. That's man. That's going to be a post, right? That's going to be one of the clips. Was that word there that you gave, man? That was amazing. So I know that you're always learning, growing, studying, reading. Who is impacting you right now? I'd love for you to share just 2 or 3 people, authors, maybe they're people in your personal life that you actually know, or maybe they're just people you follow, but who's making a big impact on you right now as far as things that they're sharing, talking about, writing, whatever?
Wow. Interesting, because I'm in a season where I'm doing a lot of writing and a lot of creating. And I'm in a season where I'm actually synthesizing a lot of what I've read over the years. So I wouldn't answer that in a traditional form and say this person right now is just wrecking me. I'm in the season where, because for the last 20 years, all I've done is read. And long before that, right? It's just read, because I was always raised to believe that leaders are readers, right? And that the moment you stop learning is the moment you stop growing.
Right.
But now in my 50s, I think the layer of wisdom is so beautiful, because now I am synthesizing all of this stuff and I'm seeing it through a different lens. And so obviously, I am really reading a lot on AI and what this means for our culture, but I'm also synthesizing what that means in terms of everything else that I've read and everything else that I've experienced. And what's coming out of that is a new perspective on opportunities that exist. So I'm huge on looking for blue ocean opportunities. I'm huge. I call them blue ocean opportunities or whiteboard opportunities. Where's the white space in terms of what are the opportunities that nobody's taking advantage of. And so I'm in a season of my life, and we're in a season of our ministry that we are really leaning into that. So for an example, one of the things that we stumbled into, and I say stumble, but this was a part of the vision of the Lord is, and I think you may appreciate this because of all of the work that we've done from a media, standpoint together. But, years ago, we started looking for creative media that had a lot of images of people of color in it, and we just couldn't find it. The majority of the creative media that exists in America, only has one demographic of people represented. And so out of a necessity, we started having to create our own creative media, because the images that people see, have a lot to do with how they interact with the word, the posture of their heart, towards the gospel. And so we started creating our own creative media that was more representative of the larger body of Christ. And that has grown into such a library. And now we're in the early stages of beginning to resource other churches that had the same problem. And so we ended up launching Mustard Seed Media for that very reason. And I'll be honest with you, who knew that things like African American history was going to be an issue in local schools? Well, we were just going down this path because we knew, for an example, hey, we need a curriculum that kids can learn about the Bible, learn about Jesus, but also see themselves. And, exploring that opportunity and then the timing of God, where we're now living in a world where people want to remove things like African American history or change it, totally created such an opportunity for us. And so that's just an example of how, I've read extensively for years on the kingdom, on, truth of scripture, on scripture itself, on just all kinds of thinkers that have shaped me. But they've also now given me the opportunity to take all of their wisdom and synthesize it and use it to seize opportunities that are out there. So I could tell you about Simon Sinek. I could tell you about Brene Brown. I love them, and I've, continue to read them. I've always read them. But I think the way that they've served me the best is they've given me such a repertoire of stuff in my bag that now I'm able to use to really see and seize opportunities in a way that I've never been able to. I hope that makes sense.
100%.
You know, I think for me, the background of my philosophical and theological training has taught me that we read to learn and to grow and understand, but also to have the tools to best interpret our own culture and our own opportunities. And so I stand on their shoulders, and they've equipped me to not only equip others, but to see the world in a very unique way and to seize the opportunities that are in front of me, like I've never been able to before.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. Yeah, and I think there's seasons, seasons of input, seasons of output, seasons of both. It's all very cyclical, and God calls us in those different things for different times. Because honestly, and I'm so again glad you said it that way, because I think a lot of times in Christian circles, sometimes and even leadership circles, it's like, what are you reading? And if you don't have a good answer, you feel like you're failing. But the truth, I know, just speaking for myself, there are seasons when I'm not reading anything. I've read a lot. I had a season, maybe over a summer. I usually read a lot when I'm traveling on vacation, and then I don't read for a while, and I process and I ingest that stuff, and I'm kind of absorbing it, and kind of bringing it into the circle, and then sometimes it comes out and talking like in this format for me or what. I mean, who knows? And then again, there'll be other seasons when maybe someone brings something in front of me that I haven't heard of before. This is a different take on stuff. Okay, great. So I love that you're kind of giving people permission to, it's great to do that, but it's also, you don't have to all the time have your head in a book. I mean, there's more to the process than just the taking in all the time. And I think go ahead.
No, I was going to say, no, I think you're absolutely right. And let me tell you why, because I think it's not about how much knowledge you retain. It's about how much knowledge you use. And I think that that's a part of the conversation that we don't talk about. I've met a lot of people that, gosh, they got a lot of head knowledge, but they're not doing anything with it. And they're not using that wisdom. Well, number one, it's knowledge, it's not wisdom, but then they're not using that knowledge so that it becomes wisdom, and so that their life or their ministry or their family or their walk is different. It's just they know a whole bunch of stuff, but you don't see the material change in their life. And I think that's a profound failure. I think if you read a book, but then you don't do anything with it, you just wasted your time. And as an author, I've written best-selling books, and I understand as an author, the burden you carry is that I don't want you to just be entertained. I don't want you to just say, oh, that's really good, I want to post that on social media. Like, I want you to live this. I want your life to be better because you encountered this book. And even in the books that I write now, that's why I write them. I don't want it to just become something you read one time and sit down and then never return to it. I want your life to be fundamentally different. And I think that's the point of the Word of God. When we talk about how the Word is living and active, right? And we know that the Word is Christ, and, his sole responsibility is not just salvation, but it's complete transformation. That's that Greek word, from which we get the word salvation, from soteria. That's what it means. It means to be made completely whole, to be made completely transformed. And so that's an active, thing that has to happen as a result of you encountering this material. So that's why I believe that. I think sometimes there's some leaders that I would say, you don't need to read another book. And I'm not suggesting that people don't need to read, but they haven't even done anything with the previous 12 books that they read. And I think that's a problem. I think let's walk that out first. And then when you've mastered that, let's move to the next thing.
Yeah. Man, that is gold. Yeah, that is so good. And yeah, it's you have a lot to talk about at a party, but if you're not doing anything,
right,
it's like,
but then your life is a wreck, right? Your marriage is a wreck. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's entertaining talking to that guy, but I wouldn't want to live like him. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. And that is so powerful. Well, brother, I mean, I wish we could keep going. I could talk to you for hours. And this is what I always loved about our relationship. I remember sitting in your office, sitting in the car, sitting on a location and for a shoot in Jamaica when we were with you there. I mean, we would have these conversations, just sharing the gold and the wisdom and the challenging and the sharpening each other and all that stuff. And I love that about you. And I know people who watch this or listen to this are going to get a lot out of this conversation. So Man, I just want to honor you. I want to thank you for your time again, and just bringing so much to the table. It's obvious that you are the antithesis of what you're talking about. You're not the guy with your head in a book or studying all the time, but you're actually living and imparting this to your congregation, to people like on this podcast and all the other platforms you get to be on. And I want to honor you for that, and praise God for you, for your consistency.
Well, Mark, first of all, it's an honor to be a guest on this pod, man. And thanks for curating this conversation, because I think it's a necessary one. And let me honor you. You know, you've been a part of our journey and a part of my life for many, many years. And while we were talking offline about how we haven't had this conversation or this kind of conversation, a connection in a while, know that I appreciate you. I honor you. And I love you, man. And I'm excited, to hear about your journey and to see what God is doing in this season of your life. And I wish you and your family nothing but the best, man.
I told you guys it was going to be amazing. And I have every confidence that you think that after you have now listened or watched that podcast. I mean, some of the stuff he said, we could do hours on just some of those individual topics. And I talked to Van when we got done, and we are going to have him back in the future to kind of continue the conversation and talk about what he's learning. But just such incredible insight. If you want to connect with Van, connect with his church, find out more about what he's doing, we've got all his contact info in the show notes. Make sure you check that out, and you can learn more about him, reach out to him, connect with him. I'd encourage you to follow him on social media, follow his church. You get some great tidbits there, some great messages, some great insight that he has and wisdom, and just really more of what you heard today, but just ongoing. So I'd encourage you to follow him and take care of that. Hey, one more time, I want to remind you to like, follow, subscribe on whatever channel you're engaging with the content. We're so grateful for you. We're so grateful that you're here. And I hope that you're getting a lot out of this. And again, let us know how we can better serve you as we go forward. Super excited about some of our upcoming guests. I'm not going to name anybody today because we don't record these in order. And I'm doing this intro outro today a little bit ahead of time. And so I'm not really sure who the next couple of weeks are going to be just yet, because they may have already been on, and I don't want to say the name if we've already had them on. But hey, definitely tune in. We've got some really powerful, amazing, incredible guests on the next few weeks, and really over the next several months. We've got people scheduled all the way out into August. And I'm telling you, we've got some amazing people that I can't wait for you to learn from. And it's going to be great. So have a great week, and we will see you next time.